Good evening. Thank you all for joining us tonight for the first of two lectures in our spring 2022 edition of the Great Minds, Great Ideas lecture series. The Great Minds, Great Ideas is a collegiate lecture series generously sponsored by Patricia Stacy Healy and Helen Stacy, and held in a partnership between Cazenovia College, Manlius Library, and Cazenovia Public Library. Tonight's presentation will be delivered by Rachel Copland, who is an associate lecturer and was recently program manager of adult and continuing education at Cazenovia College. She also works full-time in jail reform, reentry programming, and community partnerships with the Center for Court Innovation in Madison County. Her teaching and work focus on social justice, advocacy for students, incarcerated individuals, and the female precariat, and rewriting the patriarchally controlled discourse of professionalism. Together with her co-authors, Margie Burns and Tamara Iankova Hammond, she birthed the book, The Female Precariat, Gender and Contingency in the Professional Workforce in February 2019. Rachel received a master's in English from SUNY Cortland and a bachelor's in secondary English education from Kutztown State University of Pennsylvania. She has three young children, Malachi, Selah, and Sonnet, with her husband Campbell. Rachel's presentation tonight is titled Young Local Movements and the Influence on Their Rural CNY Communities. Now I will get out of the way and cede the screen to Rachel.
Okay. So when I proposed this lecture, I was thinking of young local movements in our community, specifically in childcare, farming and agriculture, and diversity. So that's why I chose the 4 organizations that we're going to be engaging with this evening. And we also have some guest speakers from those organizations to speak with the community as well. We're going to start with the Rippleton Center, which is an outdoor nature play-based center in Cazenovia. And my approach to building the lecture was thinking about unique talents and services that this particular organization brings to the community. And then also considering COVID-19, how resilient these organizations were, especially in a rural community. You know, when we have, I'm sure that I don't need to explain COVID-19 and how difficult and horrible it was for every business, every organization, but specifically new young organizations in a rural environment, it was very difficult to withstand and continue. So that's one focus I'd like to highlight in these organizations. All right, so we're going to start with Rippleton Center, and I'm not sure, let me see if I can get this out of the way here. Okay. So my first great mind is Tori Lansing, who's on the call. She began the Rippleton Center right before COVID, which I'll speak about in a minute. But I want to share a quote that she shared with me. I've always had the vision of opening a center that was unique, with room to grow, play, and develop in an environment that allowed kids to be kids and learn through play and exploration. And she definitely succeeded. You can see the picture of the kids in the uniforms, which I'll talk about in a little bit. They do fort building year round. And here's one of the biggest structures that they've been working on. And I just want to go to a couple of videos to highlight the unique and special aspects of Rippleton. So give me 1 second. All right, here's one of them. So the kids get to experience lots of special things in this video. They're watching a little duckling come out of an egg. And when my children first signed up for Rippleton, there were a lot more farm animals present. I think there's a few chickens still hanging out, but my children got to feed and touch newborn baby goats, newborn baby pigs, and help care for them, which was just amazing. And so while we're watching this cute duck video, let me just talk a little bit about my personal experience as a community member. in the Rippleton Center. My children are participants there on and off as we have need. My 3-year-old Sonnet is thriving. Her language is above level, and so is her physical activity abilities. And I believe it's because of Rippleton Center's unique outdoor play aspect. I do obviously have personal bias for the center. It doesn't mean I don't believe in other local centers. I think all of our centers around the area are excellent. And this particular one I wanted to highlight, especially because it opened 2 weeks before the COVID shutdown in March 2020. The resilience of the facility shows significant community impact and trust in a new childcare facility. The Rippleton Center was a saving grace when COVID severely impacted my own personal life. I gave Tori a call when, as an adjunct, my instructor hours were shortened because of COVID and the semester shortening. So I was facing 10 weeks of unpaid time. And so I was still doing some part-time research with CAZ, thank goodness. But Tori employed me at the Rippleton Center in the after-school program. So she provides employment for 12 employees right now. And she's constantly looking to partner with CAZ College and other young folks interested in continuing their early childhood education. My short-lived employment at the Rippleton Center, since I've returned to teaching in a full-time job, was rewarding and an experience of COVID-19 that I think worth sharing. I was on the inside of a facility that often some parents didn't even have the opportunity to enter before dropping their children off because of the restrictions. Worried parents continuing to need income would drop their children off for as normal of a day as could be had during a pandemic. Rippleton Center's consistent care, dedicated teachers, and Tori's leadership brought deep levels of comfort during chaos's community. I mean, even outside of a pandemic, parenting in and of itself is chaos. So out of pandemic on top of it and needing to work, Rippleton Center was there for those families. When I worked there, you know, we deep cleaned every corner of the facility daily, wiping every block touched, scrubbing every door handle multiple times, disinfecting cubbies daily, facilitating up to 20 kids in different virtual classrooms when parents had to work and school-aged kids were still virtual. The outdoor and nature play freedom bestowed upon school-aged children at Rippleton during a pandemic makes the place a magical addition to the community. The students would get off the bus and just run to play on the 20 acres of land that was available to them. Even during pandemic chaos, Tori created events that parents could participate in, like planting trees with their children on Rippleton property and picnicking outdoors and social distancing. So this slide shows a little bit of the unique aspects of the center. We have a reading circle outside. Here's one of the hikes. And of course, mud play is extremely important. The center opened 2 weeks after opening. The world began COVID-19 shutdowns. I can't even imagine what that felt like to Tori, and I'm going to hand the mic over to her in a few minutes. She offered consistent care throughout the pandemic, and she prioritized the needs of the community families who had no other option. Many of us, you know, our jobs were flexible or the school was flexible, et cetera, and we were all home. But for some families, they still continue to be essential personnel needing to go to work. And she kept the center going with only 10 families at the very beginning. And now 2 years later, she recently celebrated the 2nd birthday of the Rippleton Center, and she's at max capacity serving 72 families with a waiting list. She's expanded the classrooms and become a community resource, which I'm going to expand on in a minute. And she is an employer for 12 local employees. And in these pictures, you'll see The sweet handprints celebrating the birthday. This little gal has a frog, and these folks are pickling cucumbers in the summer camp. So, really unique aspect of the center. Tori, I just want to ask you to share your kind of thought process and how fast you had to adapt as far as COVID kind of sweeping your newness of your center and your opening.
Sure. Can you hear me, Rachel?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, nobody, has a vision and a dream to open up a center, go through 10 months of planning and organization and trying to make it happen, only to open the doors and 2 weeks later, the world shuts down. That's never anybody's business plan, and it certainly wasn't our business plan. But I knew that this center was unique. It does sit on 20 acres. I've been a director of childcare centers for over 15 years, and I knew that I needed to offer our community something different. And this setting was exactly what I wanted, and it just happened to be a success. However, the pandemic did put a ripple effect on everything that I dreamed for the center. However, just staying positive and knowing that it would somehow change was the only thing that I had to keep me going every day, and knowing that I could serve these 10 families that I had, and now offering it to 72 families is a huge accomplishment. And I'm proud of our staff. I'm proud of our community. I'm proud of everybody for staying with me and staying true and working through this horrible situation that we've been in, and now celebrating our successes.
Thank you, Tori. I wanted to pull up, this slide is kind of a mess. I honestly worked on it for like 45 minutes. So this is, but it has a lot.
I like that I am a mess. That's great.
No, this slide, this slide, I worked on it for so long, but I wanted to kind of squeeze in all the values of the center and just kind of give a really good snapshot of what's happened in the past 2 years. The setting, even inside the classrooms, is very nature-based, and you'll see that in some of the pictures. The Rippleton Center values safety, education, and fun as through the 3 pillars of programming and attitude. The upcycling and recycling aspect of the Rippleton Center is by far something I've never seen before. This little Christmas recycled Christmas village was one of my favorite things that we did while I was employed there. The students got very creative with pipe cleaner, ice hockey players, and tissue smoke coming out of chimneys that were toilet paper rolls, and it was all recycled materials, the winter scene that we made. And then on the bottom right hand corner, you'll see the tree planting event that happened, and you can still see the effects of COVID with social distancing and masking even outdoors. And it was raining, and Tori still had many parents come and plant the trees with the kids. The picture on the upper right hand level, the center is definitely committed to lifelong learning. Tori's always promoting professional development and looking to help her teachers expand their careers. I think Tori didn't recently, if you folks earn a credential.
I currently have 5 teachers who are working full-time and also working on their CDA, which is a child development credential, so that they can become, promoted in the childcare industry. So yeah, they not only are working full-time here at the center, but they also are taking on these classes so that they can better educate themselves in this industry.
Mm-hmm. And so you'll see the picture on the upper right hand level of some of the teachers and a lot of the kids on pajama day during Christmas time. And then the bottom left hand corner, I love this picture of lickety split amongst the grass and the mud, having an ice cream drop off for the summer camp last year. So Tori's definitely interested in civic engagement, inviting business owners to, come and partner. She has had local farmers bring tractors for tractor days. And let's see, fire department for safety days. And the trees, Tori, weren't the trees donated also by a local?
Yes, the trees were all donated by Bartlett Tree Service. We had the family here. And he was one of the, families that was here with us when we opened and needed to be here. So that was great. But yeah, he did donate 50 trees to the center so that we could have the experience of planting trees around so that the children could learn the whole process.
Good. So another aspect of my lecture this evening is, I considered doing a lot of scholarly research outside of the local community, but decided to kind of make it a meta local about local. So all of my research is through local community members. And I asked Dr. Jess Essery and Dr. David Rufo, who are the Inclusive Education Co-Program Directors at Cazenovia College, to check out the center. I sent them some press and some pictures, and they were super impressed with the way Tori approaches early childhood education, seeing aspects of forest school, art appreciation, parent involvement, and appreciation for a variety of learning materials and discovery learning. And David Rufo talked about being a firm believer in democratic, hands-on, nature-based education approaches. And then you'll see, this was a favorite display of mine, the actual measurement of a T-Rex mouth in this classroom, and then their little nature tables. And then this is, in my opinion, the best for it on the property. Kids have to walk, what do you think, Tori? A half a mile back there to get there?
Is that the nest? Is that, I can't see it, but yeah, no. Yeah, it's probably maybe a half a mile. We have trails that, are maintained so that the kids can get out to explore the other areas of the property. And yes, that nest was actually built by 4 and 5-year-olds. They did all the work finding the sticks and putting it together. That was all them. It's still out there. We still explore it daily. And it was a huge accomplishment because they were so proud. And it wasn't something that you would find anywhere else. It was truly unique to those 4 and 5-year-olds that wanted to build that and did an amazing job. And it's still there today.
I feel like I need to hire them because I need to.
I know, right? I think that most of them are in kindergarten now. Those were like our, last year students. But I would hope that they probably still have that experience ingrained in them because they may never have that kind of opportunity going forward.
Thank you. Another expert that I spoke with about the Rippleton Center is Claudia Waltz, who is an inclusive elementary education major at Cazenovia College and also worked at the Rippleton Center. And she spoke to me about learning patience and how to handle different situations. I've got to tell you, I became a better mom working at the center because that patience skill. I mean, you don't learn patience until you work at a childcare center. I'll just say that. And Claudia went on to say the kids really love Rippleton. The staff love what they do. She really was effusive about how much she loved working with the staff and talked about the organization. And her favorite aspect of the job was the variety of trails. You could go for a walk on one trail in the morning and a different trail in the afternoon with the kids. She also talked about learning in school at the college how to incorporate nature into math lessons, which she had already done at Rippleton by doing activities like counting pine cones and sticks and bringing materials in for art projects. So she felt super prepared to engage in her Cazenovia College education. And then this is a favorite quote of mine from Anya Ware, which is where Tori purchased the uniforms for the children. They all have protective uniforms for any weather. And children who spend more time outside are happier, do better in school, have deeper friendships, and are healthier emotionally and physically. And there's no such thing as bad weather when you have good gear. So that's something I feel like the CNY community, like, we just need to embrace that, right? Like, we need to stop saying this is a bad weather day and just get an Okie suit.
Right.
So,
And the mud that comes into the center every day is quite impressive.
yeah, I've got to say the mud aspect, I mean, for a child to be able to freely play in the mud without getting chided is like dream come true. Okay, thank you very much, Tori. I'm going to move on to the next organization, which is Common Thread.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for thinking of me, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you in the community, of course.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's see here. As I continue to consider my own involvement in local community and think about different organizations that brought comfort and return benefits to the community, Common Thread obviously popped up in my head. We've been members for several years. I've picked strawberries in the rain with my children at the Common Thread farm. I've bent over the pea plants to pick my own peas to feed my 9 months pregnant body, feeling super empowered and close to Mother Earth on that farm. I dried herbs for teas and to make seasonings for food throughout the year. I've carved pumpkins with the farm member family and shared harvest celebration potluck meals. Visited seedlings in the greenhouses and arranged bouquets of flowers, which is one of my favorite aspects of the farm, from June into the first frost of fall. In the first frost of fall, the following farm visit is super bittersweet. We search for any flowers or plants that may have hidden themselves from the bite. Thus fall commences and we begin to turn inwards, the root vegetables finding housing in the lower barn on the property. We get out our hats and gloves and prepare, while Common Thread still provides food throughout the winter season. For us, for my family and me in particular, the difficulties of a CAZ winter are severe, and joining something like a CSA brings balance with the bounty and joy of summer and the fall farm sun, retrieving winter storage crops from the lower barn as the snow falls outside in the middle of December. So we continue to enjoy the local earth throughout the year, which can be difficult with our season. Because the summer bounty has very heavy yield weeks, we also personally have frozen vegetables and sauces in the freezer, and many farm members have embraced canning. I have not. But I do want to show you a special, let me see if I can pull this up. It's just so hard to see here. This is 1 second of every day one of the workers was on the farm last summer. You can view that video on their website. I got all the pictures from their website. But so anyway, we're celebrating the great minds tonight of Wendy and Asher Burkhart Spiegel. They bought the farm in 2012. The farm had been established, I think, in 2008. Wendy and Asher have been in farming for quite some time. They were involved in the Poughkeepsie Farm Project, and they also worked managing a farm in Madbury, New Hampshire while finishing their degrees. Here's some pictures. Wendy and Asher with their daughters are in the center. Upper right-hand corner is, sorry, the screen is not fully, okay. People visiting the farm. There are some flower crops in the bottom left-hand corner. Some of you might not know what a CSA is. It's local production, local food, and local engagement. They use sustainable growing methods, including no pesticides, no GMOs, and promote soil health throughout the year. There's a large community at the farm. It's not just picking up your food. There's pick your own, socializing. There's a children's area, potlucks, tours, and the crew is always around with smiling faces. At the regional community level, they have a presence at several local farmers markets. They offer delivered boxes at several local sites, so people don't have to make the trek to Madison if they live far away from Madison, New York. They donate good quality leftovers to pantries and accept EBT SNAP and offer a sliding scale. And as you can see, they've had community recognition for their accomplishments. Asher's to the right. This is the Hamilton Farmers Market. When I talked to Wendy, we talked about the challenges of farming in central New York, which includes incessant rain. So they've built raised bed rows that they rotate every few years with the soil health. Managing deer access has been quite timely, where they build the fence every year and take it down every year. There's no current New York State funding specific to managing deer population. So unfortunately, that kind of funding isn't available to them. So it's definitely a all hands on deck project at the beginning of the season and at the end. This slide is one of my favorites. When I talked to Wendy, we discussed the COVID impact that the farm had. The farm grew during COVID. They received $25,000 in generous cash donations from the community, which provided 34 households with subsidized shares. They also gave $14,000 worth of produce returned back to the community. They provided 21 shares to 8 local nonprofits and provided 3 soup kitchens and food pantries throughout the season with good quality leftovers. And the expertise that I consulted was Associate Lecturer in Chemistry and Physics, Chad Jakonsky. And he talked about common thread, providing community with opportunity to build partnerships. And he also talked about how the farm partners with, not necessarily partners with DSS, but went through the whole process to accept SNAP and EBT cards. He also talked about how this farm provides food security in a region that often is overlooked as far as food insecurity goes. I believe the percentage in Madison County of folks living at or below the poverty line is about 27%. I also talked to Professor and Program Director of Biology and Environmental Biology, Dr. Thad Yorks, who really celebrates Common Share as a best way for us to truly buy local and support local agriculture. And it's a great way for folks to get in tune with where their food is coming from. You know, when you join, you have the opportunity for yourself, your family members, your friends to go to the farm, pick the crops, see how they're growing on a weekly basis. Okay, was there anyone from Common Share? They're super busy, I'm sure you folks know, with planting seedlings right now. So Wendy and Asher couldn't be with us, but I just wanted to call out to see if anyone from the farm was able to join. Okay, so as I continued to think about community, young community movements, ARC-C stood out to me, which is the Anti-Racism Coalition of Cazenovia, and their mission here, which has been shared widely hopefully you've seen it, is to educate ourselves in the community at large, engage in equitable policies and practices, dismantling systems of power, advantage, and privilege, and building racially just and equitable community. Also transforming our society and ourselves. And to that, I'd like to show this slide, another way to look at equity versus equality. We've got equality up here where everyone's received an equal bike, right? But equity would be where everyone receives a bike where they can be successful. So this is something that I really like to give a visual for, because I think there is confusion in our society about the difference between equality and equity. This picture down here was a tough one for me because I can circle a couple of things I've even done in the past year. So recognizing, I think that ARC-C is super valuable in the community, especially for someone like me, a white woman who grew up in a similar white demographic to Madison County. I lacked the life experience I wished I had to approach matters of race. For example, I thought being colorblind was the healthiest and best approach to race throughout my 20s because it seemed a positive approach compared to the racist one that I faced in school growing up. I have many years of misunderstandings and miseducation to unwind and general life experience to reflect upon when it comes to race. And I'm still learning about my privilege and I still make mistakes. And that's one place where ARC-C fits in to help folks talk about hard things. And Laura, I'd like to hand it over to you to talk a little bit about how ARC-C brings a safe space to the community.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you. I put the ARC-C web link into the chat as well. I know that you already had it on the first slide, so thank you. I guess I just want to say that, as a newcomer to the Cazenovia community, I've only lived here for about a year and a few months. It was a thrill to me to discover that our community, that the community of Cazenovia had an anti-racism coalition. I was moving back to central New York from the North Shore of Boston, where I was in a very similar sort of privileged white community. And when I say privileged, I don't especially mean wealthy, although we have wealth in Cazenovia as well. But privileged, I also mean sort of, if you look around, we are almost exclusively a white-ish community. And yet we also are privileged to be able to say, again, people often say things like, oh, we don't have racism here because we're not diverse, or, things like that. And so I find that, the community that I left in Boston that was similar to that, and then the community that moved here, was thrilling to me to see that this community actually had a cohort of people of multiple cultural sort of perspectives who were really interested in sort of understanding how the few folks who might come to Cazenovia or might be in Cazenovia and feel underrepresented could feel safe, could be supported, and could imagine thriving or growing here. And so that's where the Anti-Racism Coalition became a really wonderful new cohort of friends when I moved here. The goal of the Anti-Racism Coalition obviously is to sort of quietly sort of be present to witness some difficult situations in our town. And this is actually how I met Rachel, was witnessing a difficult moment with at a public meeting, and to then help folks on sort of both sides or the multiple sides or perspectives of a problem to understand ways that we can work together to make sure everyone feels welcome. But primarily racism. Racism is a hard word to say out loud. Once you say it a lot, you start to feel like you can manage it without feeling like you're offending folks. It scared me a lot when I was a younger person, having to say the word racism and understanding that it applied to myself. But being a participant in something called an Anti-Racism Coalition helped, again, all the members to understand that racism is so present in everything that we do. And in the United States of America, we really have to strive and work much harder to change the way we do things. So how we do it. We are present. We witness a lot of stuff. We actually have a monthly gathering where members and non-members alike come and we have a topic every month that we're talking about. Again, you can find that schedule on our website. When there's a large event, as you can see up here on the screen, when there's a large event at the farmers market, we have, again, sort of community events where if there's a community event, we represent anti-racism and have, as you can see, a chalk walk where we actually talk about Black Lives Matter. This happened actually during the Black Lives Matter uprisings and defenses 2 years ago. And the idea of actually being able to know, where do I get a Black Lives Matter yard sign? Where do I actually go to participate in a larger conversation? You see, Rachel has put up here, again, some of the things that we specifically do, which is the reading and discussion groups, which are ongoing. Anybody can join our mailing list from our website. Transformation, you see that we're actually helping to discuss police reform right now. And again, we have participants of our community who are members of the transformation and leadership for how we actually help policing to be more equitable and anti-racist. We have guest speakers who help us to understand what racism looks like for children, for adults, for people of color, for people who are in a variety of communities and situations.
Thank you, Laura. One thing I also, I'm not going to read every bullet point, but I definitely wanted to put this in front of community folks because on the ARC-C website, they have developed racist incidents response protocols.
Yeah.
So this goes to show how peacefully engaged ARC-C is as far as making sure that the community knows what's going on and making sure that there's collaboration between leadership. Laura, I don't know if you want to speak to some of those bullet points. Yeah.
I can speak most specifically to I think, again, when I was first moving here, the point of great pride from the Anti-Racism Coalition that occurred before I was here was encouraging both the town and the village boards to adopt anti-racism and anti-bias statements and to, if not post them on their websites prominently, to try to at least embrace them in their own practices. And that happened over a year, 2 years, no, was it a year ago or 2 years ago? But the Anti-Racism Coalition coalesced around that movement. And so if you take a look at some of the things here, the idea that we don't have racism in Cazenovia is often something that we discovered to be not true. At least every 6 months now, I think in the area, we tend to have a racist incident, either something at the high school that the teenagers are talking about, or something public like racist graffiti being, put onto a playground or public space. And these things are happening in our community, and we're not trying to punish whoever has done it. We're actually trying to help to make people feel safe if they feel like they're threatened by whoever it is that is potentially putting out this racist language. And so that's what you're seeing in our bullet points here, is that we're trying to actually educate and make people feel safe first and foremost. We're less concerned about punitive measures and much more concerned about transforming somebody who might feel compelled to engage in racist activities. So that's what you see. All of this is this protocol. If you find that you're confronted with a situation, just email the Anti-Racism Coalition from our website, and then you can actually, reach a group of folks who can help you to address the situation quickly. I see that there's a question asking for a definition of racism. Is that, I don't know. That's a large conversation. So is it Zagros?
Oh, Zagros, yeah.
So Rachel, how do you want to address that?
So I think that when we're talking about anti-racism, we're talking more about identifying when something is racism. It's definitely, there's not an all-inclusive definition. I do think that this previous slide,
Yes,
Zagros, will help you understand some of these aspects of racism. I think this is a really good encompassing definition. And like I said at the beginning, I'll be the first to say that I have denied white privilege. I have assumed that my good intentions were good enough. I have, let's see, I've definitely done self-appointed white ally without proper education about what that means. And I've seen the school to prison pipeline working at Corcoran High School in Syracuse, and also now working in the jail. It is so blatantly obvious. So that kind of gives you a snapshot, I think, Zagros. But if you're looking for more conversation about racism, like Laura said,
Yeah, come join us.
yeah, there are education events. This is the most recent one, I think, Laura.
Yes, we have, yeah, that is the current one. And so Zagros, again, please feel free to reach out, and any of the folks in the coalition are happy to chat with you. But the coalition is not a closed membership. It's a fluid organization. It's a coalition. And so we understand racism to be any situation whereby somebody feels discriminated against, antagonized, othered, separate from a majority. And again, while there's a significant emphasis on Black Lives Matter, we're also talking about all of the folks who tend to be discriminated against sort of consistently in our area, which is Indigenous people, people who are immigrant, migrant, people who are, again, sort of dealing with language, again, their language is perceived as different, and so forth. So we actually have folks who are, really, again, feeling different, and they're feeling like they are not invited and do not belong. And so racism has also this inherent understanding that somebody is less than if they are not sort of white, Eurocentric, whatever. Again, this is very loose. I won't stick to this as the only definition. There's so much more there. But please come and have a conversation with us.
Will there be a Q&A phase towards the end?
I'm sorry?
Will there be a Q&A?
Here tonight?
Yeah, there's going to be
Yes.
Q&A later, I hope. Let me
Okay.
get through the rest, and then there'll be some Q&A. But Laura actually set up a good transition into our next organization, talking about community members feeling othered, and the need for community members to feel safe. I also wanted to mention, I don't think we mentioned, Laura is part of the steering committee, and you may have seen her around at local town and village meetings. She's super active in ARC-C, and obviously Laura's great mind is here tonight. ARC-C in general, I felt like honoring the organization because it is very fluid, like Laura said, as a great mind organization. So that brings me to Saga Kids of Central New York. Saga Kids has a mission of working together to provide advocacy and access to resources for rural youth, which is a highlight for this particular lecture, in the LGBTQIA+ community. The organization works with rural communities to encourage, empower, educate, and elevate both the youth in these communities as well as their allies, which I really appreciate in the mission. Saga Kids provides advocacy to ensure safe and legal treatment. So when I was talking to Katie Sowers, who's here this evening to talk a little bit about the organization, she mentioned that Saga Kids does make phone calls to schools to make sure that youth are feeling supported, especially if some of their youth have filled out DASA complaints and not seen them through. So Saga Kids is there also as a legal support to advise different groups that these youth are involved with, including school, on their legal obligations and to advise on the youth's legal rights. So this first slide, we're looking at the great minds of Saga Kids and Katie Sowers. I have this little flyer. They do a lot of partnership and community. This particular event was coming out stories at the local Leaf Tea House. And there were local leaders present at that meeting, which is super important for CAZ. And I've asked Katie to be present with us to talk about what does it mean to be an ally, and what does it mean when someone says, I'm a safe person to come out to? What does that really look like? So Katie, go ahead, it's all yours.
Hi, I'm Katie and I'm here with Saga Kids. What does an ally mean? An ally means majority of the time it is a cisgendered heterosexual person, meaning it's a person whose gender matches, like aligns with what they were assigned at birth. And then heterosexual means that they're attracted to the opposite sex that they were born. So it's a male who's attracted to a female, or a female who's attracted to a male. And those people who are cisgender heterosexual are accepting and affirming of anyone who has ever come out as any part of the LGBTQIA plus every other alphabet letter that I know I'm missing. And it's that they're affirming. They're, again, very much like the racist things, they're not contradictory towards any homophobia. Like they're willing to stand up against those people who are transphobic, biphobic, all the other phobics that would be related under the LGBTQIA plus. And when they say that they're a safe person to come out to, what does that look like? It isn't somebody who's always dressed in a rainbow. I mean, that'd be pretty cool. It's somebody whose genuine heart is there with open arms, and they're not questioning any part of your identity, because your identity is yours. The only person who can define your identity is yourself. I mean, they can make comments, but again, that would like start to make me feel like they're not really an ally. They want to like rainbowify the world. Those organizations that like change their logos to the rainbow in the month of June, not all of them support the cause and the people in the end. You look at who and what they're supporting. The person who's most likely going to be an ally is going to believe you for who you are. They are going to avoid supporting the companies or the people who are in public positions of power, who are going to potentially make a law or create something that could harm you, the LGBT person, in the end.
Thank you, Katie. Our next slides, I wanted to go over the services that Saga Kids offers. While the leadership are not necessarily mental health experts, they obviously prioritize the following services. They do have adult advocates to meet with kids and their parents or caregivers to talk about matters surrounding coming out. They have workshops for youth in the group. They promote community education, and they also provide classes for the youth in collaboration with Planned Parenthood. Here are some of the, you've probably seen these colors of flags in CAZ, and we're going to come back to Katie for a few seconds after this slide to talk about the CAZ Pride event that happened last year, which I think put CAZ on a trajectory of visible support of these organizations. So Marla Velke-Roeker, perhaps some of you know who she is. She's the mental health coordinator for Cazenovia School District. She's also an LCSWR who sees private clients. She's hugely, deeply involved in the community. And when I asked her what what was her input about Saga Kids, she said, I've seen students' faces light up and their whole demeanor change when sharing with them that there is this local resource. Its very existence helps kids to feel like they are not alone, a very important resource for our community. I also spoke with Megan Wilson, who is a night library clerk at Cazenovia College, also an English BA 2022 candidate, also a homeschooling mama in the town. She spoke about the rural aspect of Saga Kids and how it's essential for CAZ because kids aren't being constrained by the societal expectations of earlier generations, which if you've lived in CAZ for very long or in the regional area in general, I think you know what we're talking about when we talk about some generational ideologies that may not match up or be fair or equitable. She also spoke to the need for allies to safely navigate this new era of being authentic to themselves and their peers. And obviously it's easier in the cities to find people you can relate with. Oops, there's a error there. And with more progressive ideas, but very difficult in rural areas. And I think COVID-19 made it difficult as well for Saga Kids. I'm going to come back to that slide. Even though COVID-19 really shut down the ability to socialize and meet in safe spaces, Saga Kids prioritized remote meetings and delivering packages of event items to youth, for example, doing paint and sips on Zoom, and when possible, doing social distance events and meeting together outside. I just want to go back to this community partnership piece. They have had events at Pewter Spoon, at Local Leaf, and they also use several local community churches, including St. Peter's, the Episcopal Church, and the Lutheran Church. And Katie, if you could just weigh in for a few more minutes about the CAZ Pride event and the partnership with H. Gray last year. Just tell us a little bit about the event and how it went for the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Travis was kind of like the ringleader who put the wheels all into action, who came up, like he had the idea and the plan, and because of his social status, it's more taken seriously than when it came from our youth a while back. So
And
again,
Travis is the owner of H. Gray and Cazenovia, right? Co-owner.
yes.
Yeah.
Co-owner, also the most fabulous drag queen ever, Anita Buffalo, who we partnered up with for some read aloud nights. She'll be making an appearance again at CAZ Pride this year. CAZ Pride, once the balls got rolling, CAZ Pride is essentially their own organization. However, with the need for insurance purposes, we've been helping them out with our own insurance through Saga Kids. Just that way everything is legal and safe and everyone can have fun. It's a way for us to get our name out there right now. It was a way for us to fundraise a little bit. So that was pretty awesome due to the fact that COVID turned down like a lot of our opportunities, because we used to do things like the annual spaghetti dinner. And unfortunately with COVID, we haven't been able to do that the last couple of years, but hopefully we'll bring back more events like that in the future. But with CAZ Pride, we started enlisting the help of the kids, enlisting the help of the rest of our board in finding the local places or the local vendors who are going to support CAZ Pride and be part of all of these amazing events. There's some exhibits of the kids' art that they've created through some of our events and things like that. That one was actually done in person, so that's always awesome. But we've managed to transform with Zoom And we definitely want parent and ally support groups for sure. Transgender seminars are led by medical professionals in the area. We try to teach the kids self-harm coping mechanisms and workshops whenever possible. Again, not just having the staff as we know things and have done research because we want a best interest and help, but we're also bringing in the actual professionals as well. So yeah, CAZ Pride is just another way for us to get our name out, and it's a way for us to represent the underserved, like not visible community that exists in CAZ.
Thank you, Katie. So their website talks a little bit about these goals that they're working towards, and I saw a lot of that community engagement, like Katie was just talking about. Okay, here are some of the contacts. I'm sure there's more information elsewhere, or if any of you folks representing these organizations want to weigh in on additional ways to contact. I wanted to give a little listing in case people wanted to screenshot like a holistic view of all of the organizations. So I'll leave that up. My final slide is just the thank you to the great minds of my special guests and my colleagues, and also all of you community members in attendance. You obviously care about community based on coming to this lecture and the nature of the title. So I really appreciate it and hope you can find 1, 2, 3, or 4 ways to engage with the local community through these organizations. So Bill, I'll turn it back over to you.